In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about the shadow work. If you've ever wondered why you keep repeating the same mistakes, or keep getting into the same bad relationship styles or types almost, or struggling with the same kind of addictions, there's definitely something deeper going on. It's not just bad luck, karma, whatever. It's actually what's considered your shadow self, the part of you that's actually running the show. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I made a video on this, and a shout out to the gentleman there that commented. He's saying, "Hello, mate." He's maybe Australian for all I know, so it's not that. But thank you for your feedback, because if you're truly interested in this, I'm not an expert, but I've definitely delved into it because I've had to. So let me dive a little bit into it, why I even did in the first place. So, well, I won't fully go into why I did, but let's just say I've been through a good amount of trauma, as all of us have. It started popping up in my relationship, as it does naturally. You think you have it taken care of, or it's not even an issue, and then all of a sudden it starts popping up. And so, I eventually got so bad that, it was kind of running my life, my actions. I was being reactive. And so I started having to research, thanks to a lot of push from Rachel too. Like I had to get first the awareness that I need the help. And then I started realizing, so one of those same things there, the toxic relationships. And I'm sorry, my dryer's probably going to beep in the back, or the washer, sorry. But yeah, so one thing I just kept thinking, I'm like, man, I keep attracting these terrible bosses. Like I've hated every manager I've worked with, except for a small handful, maybe, 3. But besides that, I've hated all of them. Like, why are they X, Y, Z? And I kept saying, I keep attracting these. It's like total bad luck when it comes to management. And not knowing that this was my shadow self, and we all do this, right? So today, that's what we're going to be diving into, right? I'm going to go talk about how it impacts your relationships, like what it is, addictions, fears, and then how you can start working with it to finally break free from these cycles that actually have been running your life. It's a program. We all have these programs that have kind of been planted into our heads from our parents, our environment, friends, and it's a matter of us like recoding a new code over that code. So let's get into it. Okay, so understanding, shadow work. What is shadow work? Carl Jung, as I mentioned before, he's really the one who led this. He introduced the idea of shadow self. It's a part of ourselves that we suppress, reject, or hide, mainly because we were taught that it was bad. That was the bad side of us. No, you cry for attention, so on and so forth. But we were just told no, bad. And this is where his quote happened, where I mentioned in the last video: "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." So think of all the things that you don't like about yourself. That's the shadow self. So I will take a few examples. I have always hated super cocky people, like super cocky, prideful people. Like it's one of the quickest ways to piss me off. And I'm like, why do they feel like they can be that cocky? What is it about them that they're like, yeah, I'm entitled to this level of cockiness, this pridefulness. I'm kind of a big deal, but whatever, it is what it is. Like, I've hated those people. And that's one thing, I found out it's a little bit of me. I'm a little prideful and cocky, right? Another thing I've hated about myself is my anger. Since my tumultuous childhood, I was a very angry kid since elementary, junior high, high school, over here, I don't know what it is in the other parts of the world, but it was essentially, I was constantly bullied. So I was pretty severely bullied. I realized there's levels of it. So it was pretty bad, where you've been blacked out before, knocked out and stuff like that. Chase, hunted down, cast stones at, I was instigated a lot, but I also, just kind of brought it to me. So I was always afraid of my anger, and I hated people that were just super angry. Once again, because it's something that I had. And so I decided to suppress it, thinking, oh, I'm no longer have anger issues. I just suppressed it. Shame. Shame's another one. Shame is pretty big with most people, and most of these are, right? I want you guys to go into yourselves. There's a lot of these parts of ourselves that we just honestly were taught that this is bad, so never show it. Don't even talk about it. Don't think about it. Another thing for me was feeling unworthy of good things. Like for some reason or another, I just felt like I don't deserve like a lot of good things unless I really earned it. And so love was always earned in my eyes. Love was never just freely given. And then addictions. Now I never, although I've tried many of things, I've tried to be a alcoholic in the sense of like, I tried to see if I could kind of party with it, and marijuana. Yeah. Like it's not, for me, it's not for me. I haven't tried hardcore drugs. It's just being into bodybuilding and never, it just kept me clean for so long. And then, so my body and my mind went to different addictions, sexual addictions. So and if you saw my podcast with, Dr. Robert Glover, you would see there that like, I even like was thinking I had a sex addict addiction. So we'll go more into that. But, so for me, it was porn, my addiction. So why do I keep looking at porn? And it still is, like you never really truly recover from your addictions. It's something you'll always have to have ready to fight. So for me, I had to start asking, why am I looking at porn? Like, and that's, you guys think, put in there alcohol, put in, prescription drugs, put in heroin, meth, crack cocaine, whatever, the new bubbly stuff, what's it called? Bath salts. I don't know. You put in your drugs. Hopefully it's not too hardcore, but they're all pretty bad, right? Mine's porn, which is just as bad in many ways. And I shouldn't label it, but it's like, it's hard, right? It's hard on you. So why do I keep looking at porn is the question that you should all ask. Why do you do X? Second, and then why do I escape into it? So why do I feel like I have to, like there's a reason you're running to it. You're running away from something and running towards pleasure, right? So for me, it's not just about lust. It's really an escape from reality. I'm able to be like, look, today I want to be with a brunette. Cool. Today I want to be with a redhead. Cool. Today I want to be with 3 blondes, and sadly it's all there. So of course, like being undisciplined, you're going to most likely run into it. It's not just, for me, it's more about also not just escape, but connection. I realized most of the time I want to just freaking bust a couple nuts or 12. It's because I want to have connection. I like crave it. Maybe too much. And we're going to actually get into this because part of my work into shadow self was because I was also learning about attachment styles, which is something that like, man, I wish everyone knew. I was reading on a couple different like forums, and a divorce lawyer spoke up, and he's like, if everyone learned shadow work, which is also attached to, the attachment styles, he's like, us divorce lawyers would be out of a job. Because that's like the single biggest thing that causes divorces is people just kind of do their thing. They run that old program. And so they do this like totally, what's the word? Like, it's going to happen. I can't think of the word. Sorry, I just got back from the gym. I'm kind of not all there, but this like, it's going to happen action. Like, and we do that in our relationships. It's sad. And it's usually because of something in our childhood. And I know some people just click off as soon as you hear, oh, childhood stuff again. That was me before. I used to think, dude, why is everything attached to childhood? Like, my childhood wasn't that bad. But if you've done some work, like if you actually had trauma, there's actually like spaces in your memory. Like it's glitches. Like, oh, I don't remember much of that. That's like not only bad memory, but it can be trauma too. Okay, so I had a deep connection. I have a deep desire for connection a lot, very often. And also sometimes feeling safe. I'm feeling wanted. Like it's like a dopamine release of oxytocin when you get off. And so I'm like, I want to feel like, okay, I want to feel I'm okay. I'm safe because I did have a tumultuous childhood and in some ways, and sometimes you don't have to be bullied relentlessly to have that or have super bad poverty, right? Like I did. What you may have is just a parent that's just not there emotionally, physically. They might just not be there for you. So you have this desire to feel safe, wanted, connected, or maybe they're kind of aggressive, so you want to escape. So this is where we jump into XYZ, drugs, right? Mine's porn, right? So now knowing that, hopefully with your curiosity, it allows you now to have a little bit more empathy with yourself. What's the psychology word? Compassion. And realizing that all these parts of you, the shadow self, isn't the enemy. It's it's actually a lost part of you. Just like confidence, true confidence is literally just buried in you. Everyone has true confidence. In fact, I forget the doctor's name. A psychologist says if everyone was able to unbury all of their confidence, everyone would be extroverts. There would truly be no introverts, like true introverts. Everyone would have a different level of battery where they're like, all right, that's enough humans for today. But everyone would be extroverted as far as like wanting to get out there, trying new things, trying hard things. If they all had that shadow work done, if they all, because that's where the confidence comes from. So it isn't the enemy. It's that last part of you, the lost part, lost in the jungle of your brain, and it's trying to meet an unmet need. So the attachment theory that goes to shadow work. Now this is the attachment theory highlights the importance. I'm going to read this definition of a child's emotional bond with their primary caregivers, mom, dad, grandpa, aunt, uncles, whatever. It's a disruption or loss of this bond, and that can affect a child emotionally and psychologically into adulthood and impacts their future relationships. So that's the attachment theory. So something happened in your childhood, there was an emotional bond, something with primary caregivers that was disrupted, that loss, and then boom, you have this emotional. That's why it's really what happens is we start handling or tackling adult-like situations with our childlike brains. And that's what shadow work is now taking your adult brain, adult emotions, adult, you, and then jumping into your childhood past brain and saying, okay, now looking at it as an adult, how was it really? And how, now I can have compassion on myself. So that's really what shadow work and going to a therapist, that's what that really is. It's just taking an adult brain and being like, I'm going to go back in time and see the reality. Like, let's see a little bit more non-biased because when I was like 7 years old, I thought everyone was like, they were giants to me. They were huge. And if they were semi-muscly, they were enormous muscly. So like, or obese or very obese. Like we all had this perspective because we're literally always looking up at people unless you were born a giant, stuff like that. Like just perspectives were literally different when you were kids. Okay. So now jumping to attachment styles, your early relationships, they create your attachment style. It's shaped how you connect with others. So there's four. One is secure attachment. That's like the coveted one. You trust, you love, you connect. It's like you're ready. You're ready for a solid relationship. You most likely will have a healthy relationship because you trust, love, and connect. Now these are the not so bueno ones. Anxious attachment. You fear abandonment and crave closeness. You're a little needy, yet you don't know how to handle it, right? You're constantly like asking, like, how are you doing today? Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? I am so bad at that. I always ask. You can sense it. If you've been through, like if you have that attachment style, you'll always can sense it, and you can see another. So you're like, how are you doing? Are you okay? If you do that too much in your relationship, it's going to push them away. Okay. On the flip side, if you have someone that was born to be way too independent, the avoidant attachment style, you push people away to protect yourself. So you will self-isolate over anything. It gets a little too hard of a conversation, I'm out, shut down, peace out. Okay. Now, I would say the worst is fearful avoidant. It's a little bit of a avoidant mix. And you want love, but you're afraid of being hurt. So you're like this double-edged sword to yourself and everyone. So if you keep ending up in a toxic relationship or relationships or cycles of self-sabotage, it's not random. It's your shadow self trying to heal something from your past, but by doing that, it's just recreating familiar patterns. It's like, oh, I've done this before, and it's always a sad story. Okay, so the first step in shadow work, and it is, you can do however you want it, but this is like what I did. I started journaling. Okay, so you got to be curious. You got to be curious and not judge about like who you are. Now we're going to talk about the shadow. So picture a good angel version of you, the part that you say you are, your affirmations, like I am smart, I am that's hard, that's as far as I get. Just kidding. I am strong, I am healthy, I am rich, I am confident, I am hot, I'm lovable, whatever it may be. All right, I'm sexy, I'm kinky. I don't know about kinky, but whatever. All right. So that's your angel, positive, good side that we flaunt to everyone. I'm a problem solver. I'm this and that. And then you have the satanic, if you want to put it as evil, demonic side, whatever. That's not really demonic. He's just misunderstood, this demon side, right? not demon side, the shadow side. Freak me. The shadow side. All right. And it's just a misunderstood kid. It's like that emo kid. If you guys grew up in my generation, these emo kids, they were like, have the raccoon eye like makeup, and they have the hair over one eyeball. And you're like, what the freak? They can't even see it. Why would they walk like that? They, maybe a lip ring, and they had like too many chains and like, I don't know, buckles and all this baggy clothes and holes and too tight of jeans maybe, or too baggy, super big skater shoes. And they walk around with this super dark bleached hair, not bleached, whatever's dyed. And they were cool. If you actually got to know them, they were normal. They just showed their emotions. So they were emo kids, right? That's kind of like your shadow self. I picture that emo kid. All right. He just didn't know how to have social interaction. So he just kind of ostracized himself. He said, I'm going to be unique. I'm going to be me. The thing is, he's craving the same attention as the popular jock strap over there. That's a douchebag asshole. He's just like them. He's just going about it a different way. Okay. That guy's getting plowed, laying 50 women out and bragging about it, while this guy's like, well, I can sing a song in my car by myself. Like, I don't know. And I've been a little bit of both. I've been, like, not dressed, but like I've understood both, right? So that's really what the shadow side is. So you start by curiosity journaling, and what's a part of you? Here's the question to ask yourself: what part of you, what part of me, can I not stand? Can I not even be with? Do I just like hate? And that, this is the part you got to start writing this out. So you write this part out, and then you write this good side out, and then you write your goals, and then you write who you are now, and you can see the discrepancies there, right? So those 4 things, and you can go do that on your own, but I'm going to continue on. So the part, like maybe you're greedy, you're prideful, you're shameful, whatever it may be, you'll realize that what triggers you the most in others is typically in you. So I was talking to my brother one day, and he was like, oh, so pissed and like triggered, in the sense of like, and that trigger is kind of like such a stupid word. They've changed it. Like, it's now means like reactive. Like, I'm reactive. No, it's supposed to mean like it's bringing out a shadow side. But, with the world, they kind of change it. But he was going about this guy he doesn't like, and I would say even hates. And there's part of him, my brother, in that guy, and that's the part he hates in himself. And that's the thing, is like I look at the prideful guys, I'm like, dude, why is he so prideful? Like, there's no need. Like, or what about money? Like, dude, that guy is so money hungry, it pisses me off. He like acts like everything always works well for him, and just like, everything's just fine and dandy, and he brags about it though, and that always bothers me. Like, I don't even talk to people like that. Like, people that are like super like cocky like that usually don't have a lot of friends. They have superficial friends. And then I realized like it's because he like thinks too much about money. And then I realized, so do I. Just in the absence of it, I'm always thinking about money and the lack of it. I'm like, I never have enough money. Where do I get money? I wish I could hold on to money. I'm just like him, but in a different way. And so his obsession with money is what I hated about myself. I was greedy in the sense that I'm greedy. Like, I want money. And so does he. Same with the prideful guys. Like, I'm prideful too. Like, I'm pretty proud of some of the lists I can do. So my body transformations. I'm proud of my research ability, that I can research something like to the nth degree and love it. And yet, like, those are all sides I hate about myself too. Right? So you got to think about that. So if arrogance bothers you, maybe deep down you weren't allowed to feel confident growing up. That's exactly what you got to go. Like, if arrogance is something that bothers you, you weren't allowed to feel confident. And that's so true with me. Like, we had to, I don't want to go too much into it, but yeah, we just kind of we were told not to shine too bright because we don't want attention on you. Don't get attention on you. Just kind of swim by. Don't let anyone see or ask questions or do anything. Like, just get past, so you don't stick out and get bullied or XYZ, okay? If someone's success makes you jealous, which happens to me, it used to happen way more, not anymore, but like not as much anymore, I should say. I'm not perfect. But if someone's success makes you jealous, maybe you were taught that you weren't good enough. Me again, like I always thought like I was never good enough, and I still struggle with this. I don't get as jealous, but there's like a little ow, like, man, I wish that was me, always. So what do I escape into? For me, it was porn. Like I found my release in porn. Alcohol takes too much money and time. Smoking, weed, all whatever, drugs, you have to go out and get it. Porn is like right there at any point in time of the day, and it helps me feel what I really want, fill that hole of connection, escape, love, not feeling loved. So that, I went to overeating, hence why my yo-yo dieting king. That's why my channel's called Ben Sista There and Back Again, because I go there and back again over and over. I'm the king of yo-yo, right? I have been, I should say. I escape into constant self-improvement. This is, I literally like watch videos or listen to videos. It was so much that my wife was saying like, hey, look, you never have nothing on the, like in the background. I always am listening to a YouTube channel, because I'm like, well, I'm always learning. Like, life is about growth. Like, but there's a limit. Like, you should, now I actually like am quiet most of the time. Like, there's nothing playing in the background. No TV, no YouTube, no music. It's just that. Wasn't that nice? A change of cadence. Like, that is what's needed more in life. You get that at work. You get that with kids. You get that at home. You get that shopping. You get that driving. Sometimes if you go secluded areas, then you feel a little bit of that silence. So that's what, like, I'm just telling you, like, you got to think, what do I escape to? Okay. And why I'm doing that. So instead of feeling guilty, so now, like, for me, instead of feeling guilty for my behaviors of going to porn or overeating even, I have to ask, what are these fulfilling for me? Like, what are they completing? And for me, like I said, connection. Like, I just wanted to hold someone's hand. I want someone, like, sometimes weird. I'm like, I just want to be held sexually, but not sexually. I don't know what it is, right? And that was like me being hypersexual. Now they say there's a huge connection with ADHD and hypersexuality too. So I'm ADD and all that stuff. So, all right, negative actions have positive intentions. This is something so key. I'll say that again. Negative actions almost always have positive intentions. It sounds crazy, right? It's coming from someone who was relentlessly bullied. Like, those, they learn that from somewhere, but it's also because most of the time your shadow isn't trying to destroy you. Your shadow self is trying to protect you, and that's why it's doing these. It has good intentions, but it goes about it the wrong way. Okay, so now another portion of this. Here's a good example of this. Anytime you're procrastinating, it's actually because of fear. So you procrastinate because your fear of getting bad results, your fear of failing, your fear of rejection. Like if you have to do a test for school, you have to go up speak in public. So procrastinating is actually a fear of those bad results. And behind that fear, if you peel back another layer, that's really because your body, aka your mind, your shadow self, is actually trying to protect itself. So there's learned behaviors and fears, right? So it starts with that negative action, which has positive intention, the procrastination, right? Then it goes into fear. That's why it's really happening, because your fear of failing. So it's really just your mind trying to protect itself. It's learned behaviors. There's really no bad parts in it, in yourself. It's just like something that you do. So your body and mind are really trying to protect itself. Okay. When it says your fears are learned, and this is, negative self-talk, the belief that's telling you is, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. Those weren't yours to begin with. Someone implanted that code into your head. If you're an engineer, software engineer, like, that's bad code. Bad code written DOS language, right? Like way back then, not C++, not, like, it is way back when. There are no bad parts in people, just wounded parts. Okay, and that's what I think when people say, yeah, we're all broken, and then you also hear on the flip side, no, you're whole, you're complete as you are. This is where they come. Like, it's just no bad parts, so it's just wounded parts. So we are whole and complete. We come whole and complete, just wounded, complete. So does that make you complete? That's a whole theology question, right? So inside of you, there's different kinds of people. This is a whole psychology. If you want to do work on it, it's called IFS work, and it's a certain type of therapy. But inside of you, there's like different types of personages. Essentially, you have a few. One is like the fun, loving one, the one that's like a jester, the one like let's go have fun. The kid in you, the one that's like, this is what happens when guys, my bros, when you get around just guys and all of a sudden you're talking about boobs and vaginas, and you're just like a kid again, and you're just like laughing about stupid things and you're just entertained over the simplest, dumbest things. That's the fun one. So in you have a fun one, or the kid one. That's that part of you. They're called parts. Okay, parts of your brain, parts of yourself. And they all have to do with shadow. Remember, if there's a good part, there's a bad part. So there's technically, like, instead of 4, there's 8, right? The leader. There's a leader part of you. He's kind of overall. He's I'm the one who gets shit done. I have a family that depends on me. I'll get shit done. Don't worry. Sit back. I'll take care of this. He's the one that takes over a lot of times, but usually the one that takes over the most is the protector. The protector is going to go in there, fight the fights for you. He's the warrior class. He knows every weapon in the book. He does dual wield, bow and arrow, axe, sword, guns, bazooka, nukes, whatever. Like, he knows what needs to be done and to get it done in a different way. The leader can plan strategically. The protector will actually go and do, right? And may end up, whatever. That goes into a whole different thing. There's also the part, like I said, there's the good child, bad child, good protector, bad protector, good leader, bad leader. There's also like the sovereign. This is like the magician, the all-knowing Merlin, Gandalf, Dumbledore, all these old men, like they're the old part of you that is the one that you'd want to listen to. So instead of trying to silence these parts of you, you should try to listen to them. And then they'll try to speak up. This sounds crazy. It sounds like we're all if any kind of like hard things happen in your life, you get what's called fractioned. Your personality, your life, you get fractioned. So you literally get broken into parts. It's not that you're just bipolar or multi-personality disorder, which is whatever, not even a thing, maybe, all that stuff. So just look into that. I'm not going to dive into that. There's a whole different video. If you want more, let me know in the comment sections. But that's a whole different world that I think is very helpful for self-help and getting better. So, romantic obsession and shadow self, next section. For this one, I want you to look at your own personal relationships and be honest, okay? Because you can see that this is the script I'm talking about, that we were all handed a script, essentially, and we followed through. We're like, I'm going to do this because our childhoods weren't perfect. Your kids, if you have kids, you're messing them up somehow in a lot of ways. So this is where romantic obsessions, shadow self, the attachment styles come in, right? Have you ever, do you have a person or your person, partner, spouse, whatever? Do you idolize them? Do they idolize you? When you were dating, were you like daydreaming about each other? Or even if you're married, do you feel empty without them? Okay. If there's ever feeling of obsession with someone, thoughts of like, I need this person in my life to feel complete. That's not love. That's limerence. You can look into limerence, what that is. It's essentially, it's your shadow self begging to integrate with a part of that part of yourself, the light self that was never allowed to develop. So I can be personal, like I can tell you from personal story, like my wife and I, we fell into limerence hard. Like you usually do this after a breakup. That's why that rebound, you just like fall hard for that next person really quickly, because you need someone to feel complete, or you just become obsessed because you idolize people quick because you're not used to idolizing yourself in a good way, right? In a safe, boundaried way. So I've met her, and like I said, it felt like God pretty much said, this is the one. And so I was like, yeah, all right, God, this universe has brought this person, and I'm beginning to be interested. And then I became head over heels. She became head over heels. And by date number 2, she's like, I think I love you. She's like, and I don't know why I'm saying that. Like this was all limerence. Like we fell hard for each other. We felt like we understood each other. I literally have said, I felt like home when I talked to her, when I met her the first time. I'm like, whoa, this feels like home. But like I said, if my home was traumatic and chaotic and not so healthy, that probably means my body's, oh, thank goodness. My known chaos is always better than my unknown peace. Okay. So limerence, anyway, so you grew up suppressing your confidence, playfulness, or sexuality. This is for you ladies too, right? I know that sexuality is huge for you guys, especially if you're like of any kind of faith believing like you believe in Allah, God, whatever, like you got to suppress that sexuality. You meet someone then who embodies everything you weren't allowed to be, and suddenly you feel, I need them. I need that in my life for some reason. Your spouse may be this way, like overly obsessed, like they can't help it. This is like, it's where they, you know, it's cute and good in the beginning, but it's actually, there's parts of it that's unhealthy. Like it's very healthy to some point. Like you better love your partner, right? You better like be obsessed about them. They're like number one in a sense, but you're number one, right? This is what happens if you're not unhealthy. Like you got to take care of yourself, and in so doing, you love them so much that you want to be selfless, but you don't want to be careless, right? So you take care of them, but you have to take care of yourself, okay? And if you ever feel like you need them, it's not true. In the end, everyone, like, if you guys are old enough, your parents will die. At one point in time, you said you needed them in life to live. And you did, right? When you were younger. Your spouse, they can die. Something can happen, they can leave. And that was a need. And that's where the whole Buddhist belief is correct, where I think you need to learn to let go of everything you quote unquote need, to realize you really don't need anything. You just want a lot of things. But what you really need is just all here. It's already there. It's you. I hope that makes sense. This is a whole different thing if you want me to go into needs and all that stuff. But what you really need is to reclaim those lost parts of yourself. We're going back to the shadow self, right? The moment you do your own shadow work, you stop putting people on pedestals, which is good. You stop chasing someone else to make you feel whole, because you've finally given yourself permission to be complete by yourself without anyone else. If you live to the awesome age of 99, 100, and your spouse dies, and you somehow have awesome genetics, and you live another 15 more years, you realize you didn't need them. It was definitely a plus. You definitely wanted them. It was better in many ways, but you don't need them. And that's the truth. It's so weird. It's backwards, because they're your everything. But once you've lost them, you do realize you didn't need them. You just wanted them really bad. But you're whole by yourself. So why we repeat these life cycles, I'm going to now transition to this. If we end up in the same life cycles of bad relationships over and over again, it's because we haven't learned that same lesson yet. We date the same kind of people, same types of people, and then we sabotage those opportunities because our shadow self is still searching for healing in that familiar place. It's like, I know this, so gravitate towards it. You kiss someone, you share chemicals, and then it's like, oh, I know this. This seems familiar. This chaoticness, yeah. This unhealthiness, yeah. Let's go to it. And so it's so hard because you get attracted and you do fall in love with, you know, parts of unhealthiness. Not saying all of it's unhealthy, right? Like, it's just parts. And so the good news, though, is obviously, even though, you know, your shadow self is searching for that healing from that familiar place, you can break the cycle. So that's what the word integration means, going from the light and dark and combining them into one person, one being. And this happens through journaling, all that, like this kind of stuff, awareness. So hopefully I'm just bringing awareness, but it starts also with self-compassion. So this is really hard. It's probably the hardest thing you'll ever do. I know it sounds silly, unless you're like a narcissist, supposedly. Like self-compassion is the hardest thing. It's just so hard, unless it's a practice muscle. Like you have to train. And like I talked to one of my buddies, and Eric, and he was like, I was like, how did you get, because he was so confident before his wife, you know, right now he's not as confident in his marriage and in himself. And I can see it in the marriage. I'm like, what happened, you know? And, you know, marriage happens. But he was so confident when he was single. And he what he'd do is he'd take himself out on dates. He'd take himself hiking. He'd take himself he'd just go out in nature by himself. And he was so complete and like full of life. And then also one thing he shared with me, he's like, he had to start doing work, like his therapist shared, like it's weird and it's hard, but you stare yourself in the mirror, naked, balls, cock and balls just dangling in the wind, tits hanging out, stinky breath. Just kidding. Okay, you have imagery, but you're just staring. All right, stare at the mirror, and you're supposed to put your hand on your heart, and if you want, you can put your other hand on your belly. Or your abs if you're ripped. Most likely our bellies. But you can just mainly just put the hand on your heart, and then you're supposed to talk to yourself saying repeatedly, blank, you know, like, Ben, I love you. Ben, I love you. Ben, I love you. Over and over and over again. And do that for like a minute or two. Solid. And say, next time you can say, Ben, I'm proud of you. Ben, I'm proud of you. Ben, you're worthy of love. Ben, it's so cheesy. And for me, it was like, you lost me at the stare at myself naked in the mirror. You don't have to be naked, but I hear it's more effective. I read it's more effective. Like, because you look at yourself, your imperfections, like, oh, hell no. I don't love myself. What about my this and that? You know, like, my balls are uneven, my dick, I wish it was bigger, whatever. You know, you start picking, look at that mole, look at that fat, that crease, the crevasse, the hairs growing everywhere for no reason. Oh, look, an ingrown pit bull, whatever, you know. Like, it's harder when you're naked. That's why I say do it. But yeah, like, you're supposed to look at yourself, tell yourself you love yourself repeatedly. Like, even something as simple as I see you, I hear you. But it gets even more powerful. So that's one thing my buddy did, and it really worked for him. And I've been doing it too. And I'm like, I think it's working. I hope it's working. I do grateful for's in the morning. I do 3 grateful for's first thing I do when I go to bed. I do that. I write down my journal, 3 grateful for's, just random. Sometimes I'm grateful for bed sheets because the bed sometimes feels like orgasmic, right? I'm grateful for good sleep when I get good sleep. So I put that law. I'm grateful for a cool bedroom when it's not freaking hot. Yeah, like, you can do simple things because it's hard at first. Eventually, you're like, start saying, like, I'm grateful for the existential, you know, mindset, like, you know, whatever. You can go crazy. But one thing that helps self-compassion, if this is a really hard thing for you, I would definitely say this. My therapist told me to do this, and I've heard many therapists say this, and a very popular one, Dr. John Deloney, and it was, you get a picture of yourself when you were a kid, whether it's like you try to find the time when you were the most troubled, the time where you kind of got stuck mentally because it was just hard, and the most misunderstood, the time where you're like, oh, that time of my life hurts a lot. I don't even want to go visit it. You take pictures of you from school, hopefully you have some, and you put them as the background on your phone. And so for mine, I had it as the main background for some time, long time, and it really was effective. And then eventually I moved it to like a little bit of like my goal self, who I want to be, like when I'm in shape and stuff, and then the 3 me on top. And maybe I'll put that on the screen here, but it's for me, it's like, that's the age that shit hit the fan. Like, I pretend to be happy. You can maybe tell that I wasn't always happy, but like, that was the time of my molestation. That was the time of, and I'm being open about, you know, a lot here, but like, sorry if that triggers you, lol, in the newer sense of trigger. Like, but it's the reality. You know, that was the time of my hardship, like, where mentally, like, I got stuck. Emotionally, I should not mentally. Emotionally, I got stuck. Yeah, so you look at yourself as a kid, and now you look at that kid version of you, and instead of beating yourself up, saying you suck, XYZ, it's so much easier to be like, ooh, I love you. I see you, I hear you, and I understand why you feel this way now, as an adult. It is powerful. Please try that. It is a different kind of powerful, and you will probably cry. I'm just going to tell you that. Shadow work, and I should put this in the disclaimer in the beginning. I probably will. I'll edit it. Shadow work is hard. It's hard. Like, there's different levels in what you can do with shadow work. I'll quickly say one. I'm going to go continue with steps 2 and 3. But one I had to do, or what I did, is you kind of go into a meditative state, almost like hypnosis, but you just meditate yourself, right? Chill out. And then you purposely go back to your worst memories, and you start taking a trip down memory lane, only the worst times. Ooh, it is hard, and you try to continue to like control, like, hey, I'm here, like in the present now as an adult, I'm safe, but like, you're in there. It's weird. Like, I was bawling like a baby when I did it, and afterwards you journal what happened, and you know, that's kind of what EMDR and ART therapy does, but that's a powerful one, okay? So if you've had some hardships as a kid, some not, like they say little t, big T trauma, like I mentioned in the last video, you could have been yelled at a little too much, and boom, you have trauma. That's it. That's all it takes. A little yelling, you're screwed. And so how many kids do we have that are rebel children, and you yell at them because they're stupid, because they're Sometimes like, are you special? Like, what the freak, man? Like you're like, I told you, you know, attention span's 5 milliseconds, you know, and they go on and do it. If you have girls, usually they're not that bad, but boys are trouble. Okay, that's number 1, self-compassion. Number 2, trigger reflection. Next time something sets you off, ask, how am I that? That person just pissed me off. He cut me off, and what? You freaking, I'm gonna, you know, chase them down and beat them up. Okay, how am I like that person? Right? Like, you got to ask yourself, that person's triggering you in the sense, it's literally bringing out a shadow self, a part that you hate about yourself, right? And you have to ask, and that's the question, how am I like that? How am I that person? And then you also start having compassion. So if I get angry at someone's arrogance, or I'm suppressing confidence, my confidence in my own life, right? So like, and I guess I should say that different. Like, if I'm usually angry at someone that's like a cocky bastard, it's because I am like, am I like, I usually am, right? Suppressing confidence in my own life. Like I am, typically I am. And that's why I hate that, because I like envy them in a sense. I'm like, dang, how can they can be so, I'll bring up a memory. There's this cocky that, this is like in a churchy kind of atmosphere, and so you're supposed to be humble, meek, and kind, and Christ-like, blah blah blah. And this guy was the cockiest. I'm trying to hold off from swearing, but he was just a man. Like, he was so mean. Like, he was everything a guy would want. He probably had a micro penis, but that's what I like to tell myself. But like, he was like tall. He was like 6'2", 6'3", muscly, good looking, strong jawline, perfect teeth, spiky hair. He was just like everything back then, right? That girls wanted. It was like bleached hair. And man, one day I saw him, like, he realized, again, I'm sure, his own arms, because they were bigger arms, his biceps, and they were like, his shirt was like 3 sizes too small. And so he starts kissing his biceps. Like, literally, he kissed his right bicep and then his left biceps and then flexed them again. He's like, yeah, and kind of like nodded, like, all right. I like, at that moment in time, I literally wish I had like blow darts, like I want to like harpoon him, spear him. There was immediate, like, I want to kill this human. At that moment in time, I should ask myself, where in my life am I suppressing my confidence? Because that's why it's triggering me. Because I'm a freaking, like, ballless, testicleless, in many ways, human. Like, I'm so, like, deprived of confidence. I felt like growing up that it's hard for me to be confident naturally. So part of me is like, fuck you, man. You can just have it without trying, to the point that you're kissing your own freaking body parts, your own anatomy. Because like, he'd be sucking his own dick if he could. He probably does, but it's a micro penis, so he can't. Never mind. But like, it's just crazy, right? So that's the story. Sorry. Okay, that was tip 2. Self-compassion 1. Trigger reaction reflection is number 2. Number 3 is journaling and meditation. Like I said, this is the harder part. If you do the meditation part, that's where you sit down and you really, like, there's like certain beats and it helps your frequency, blah blah blah, right? It's not going full woo woo where you know, set stones around you and XYZ, but like, you put a certain beats, like binaural, I forget what it's called, but and then also it's got like a certain beat drum, and it helps you get into a meditative state really quickly, and helps you relax and go. And then you pick your memories, and what happens is your brain is like layers of onions, so it keeps going deeper and deeper. You realize, oh, this is not as bad. Like, there's more to it. And there's parts where I realized when I did that the first time, and I haven't done it since. It was so hard, to be honest. I do it with like EMDR now, with a licensed professional, but that time it was like, yeah, it like kept reminding me of things I completely blocked out of my memory. I was like, oh my gosh, this happened. And like, I always thought, like, your memory is pretty crappy. I've like read that, like, don't trust your memory. It's pretty shitty. But when it's tied to trauma, you can remember like the smell, the shirts that people wore. Like, you remember these way more detailed aspects because it's literally burned into your brain. You're like welded, scorched into your brain. So journal, meditation, write down your recurring patterns. So if, like, for me, I noticed that I kept attracting terrible managers. Boom. That's your shadow self trying to tell you something. So you sit with them, you write them down, right? No judgment, and then start being curious. Okay? So closing thoughts. And this is just something like theology, like, because we tend to, like, I don't know, we tend to, how do I want to say this, is like we have like certain beliefs in ourselves, right? We have beliefs in lives, and we make meaning out of anything and everything. Oh, that guy's going fast, so he must be an asshole. Or that guy's going fast, he must be going to a hospital, or he's late for work. We put the meanings behind everything. So what's weird is with this shadow work stuff, it's the same way. Like my unworthiness of having good things in my life, unworthiness of having love, which like I didn't think I even like was a thing for me, and then I'm like, holy cow, like I found out it's for like everyone. Most people, it's like, am I worthy of love? Am I worthy of being loved? Will I be abandoned again? That's a lot of people's, as I researched this, a lot of people's shadow self. It's part of it, I should say. So in life, like we don't deserve, all of a sudden we have this meaning and story like, well, I don't deserve love in my life. I don't deserve good things in my life. So if that's true, what did you do to deserve a good life or a bad life? Or what did you do to deserve a good health, good healthy organs and body, or bad organs and a bad body? Did you have to do something to get those when you were just a kid? No, like yes, there's environments, there's the genetics, but you didn't. There's nothing done on your part to deserve whether it was good or bad, a good life or a bad life, bad health, good health, etc. Okay, so life, in the truth of it is, life isn't about deserving. It's about learning, like relearning all this. So we just put meaning to it. So all those like thoughts of like, man, I was having one, I wrote one down just last night. I'm like, or this morning, I guess. I'm like, I guess I had a dream about abandonment. And I'm like, man, I guess I still have a fear of being abandoned. And so why do I keep thinking I deserve to be abandoned? Like, what did I do to deserve that? Like, no, it's like we put a meaning behind it. It's not necessarily your truth. You make it your truth though, okay? So if you feel stuck in your cycles of pain, addiction, self-sabotage, your shadow self isn't trying to ruin your life. It's trying to get your attention. So give it dang attention. Okay? The shadow self is not your enemy. It's a lost part of you waiting to be reclaimed. So here's what I want you to do. Obviously, I want you first, do the homework yourself, right? There's plenty of videos out there on shadow work. What I think would be the best is turn off any and all music, YouTubes after this. Go freaking just sit down in silence. And I mean it. Like, if you have family, you have a spouse, be like, fuck off. Just be like, hey, I'm going to be in this room for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever. You give yourself a time limit. It's hard. I've done an hour of silence. Monks do 10 hours of silence a day, at least 10 hours. And they meditate for 10 hours. That's insane to me. But I've done an hour. I started with 10 minutes though. Like, I try to do an hour a day. An hour, sorry, is my norm, my consistent now every day. I do an hour at least of nothing. Like, listen to nothing but my thoughts. And I have to sit there, which is the hardest part. Like, you feel like such a lazy bastard. Once again, you're judging. You're like, I'm doing freak. Like, I'm doing nothing. I'm wasting my day. I don't have that time. So obviously, if you're a busy dad, you can't really escape. Go in your car, escape for 30 minutes. Go in your car, escape for 15 minutes. You find the number, but escape. Have a journal nearby. I sometimes also voice record. I'll voice record immediately after, but it's good to like write down. There's actually more power in writing it down, and it's actually more action and change when you write it down. So actually start thinking about that shadow self of you. Who is it? What is it saying? What does it look like? What are those parts of you that's coming out that's trying to say, hey bro, you ignore me? But we all have this ugly side of us. Because I was bullied, I became a bully. And like to this day, I remember this one time I kicked this kid's head on the cement and it bounced and ricocheted back to my foot and back to the cement again, like really fast. And it sounded like I don't know. It was disgusting. It sounded like hollow, squishy, like reverberating, like, but like kind of almost hollowish and squishy. I could hear the impact of the brain. It's pretty intense. But I hated that part of myself. And so I tied that to any kind of anger. So therefore, I couldn't show any of that ever again. Because I was afraid of what I could do to others, what I saw, what I people are capable of. I'm capable. I was a young kid, and I was capable of freaking knocking this kid out, and he was unconscious. I don't even know. I don't know the story. Like I was being bullied, and I just handled him in a completely overreactive way because I was so sick of being bullied. And I don't know what happened. I hope he got up. No, I was a little kid. Like, there's no way I could have done too much damage. But still, the brain's very sensitive. So I don't know what kind of damage I did. But I know I did damage of some kind and knocked him out. But because of that, that's part of my shadow. There's ugly, hideous sides of yourself. But once again, what was that shadow side? Like, it's always been trying to do? It's just trying to protect me. It doesn't want you to get beat up anymore. It doesn't want you to get abandoned. It doesn't want you to feel neglected. Neglect is the biggest abuse, like the strongest, that hurts you the most. And we have it so often where parents don't even recognize you. You're the middle child, whatever. Like, you're just there. But there's so much, troubled children. The other siblings are like perfect students, and you just kind of sit in the middle. Like, that's neglect, right? So there's a lot of part of the shadow, and so they act out in the form of attention or this or that, addictions or who knows what, and it's an ugly side. But that's the part of the you that you have to learn and start to beginning to have compassion for and love. And that's why looking at that kid self, teenager self, whatever, that did those stuff, and look at it and be like, dude, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I wish I could be there for you now, as I am, as an adult. And then have compassion for yourself. Hurt people. You were hurting. So your shadow self did what it knows to do best, and that's protect you in some way or another. Now you have an addiction. Now you have XYZ habits. Now you have a bad past. Now you have, who knows, right? Ugly marks, scars in your history. But that's also part of you. So you have to start to learn to have compassion. This is where that work, journaling, meditating comes in, where you're going to have a lot of hard conversations with yourself and be like, I did that. Like me and that kid, like I kicked his head. Like it wasn't a curve stomp, luckily, but it was his head was forward and then sideways on the cement, on the sidewalk. And I hate that part of me. But it was good to go back and visit as an adult emotionally and be like, oh my gosh, like Benji, you were just scared. You were so fed up, so done. And on the flip side, you may be so desperate for attention, desperate for a connection, desperate for someone notice me, that you act out in some weird way. What we consider weird, right? But you have to have compassion on that and be like, look, we're humans. If you haven't done something like not heinous, but like weird or like intense, like other people would consider weird if you told them about, if you haven't done that, you're perfect. And in my book, there's only one person who did that, but besides that, everyone has done stuff like that. Everyone has done stupid stuff. And I have another story to share with you. There was one time I got in an argument. He was with the CEO. It was the COO of the company, and he was going to punch me. He literally got his fist in the hand, and I was so triggered. And I automatically got my fist ready, and I'm like, swing first. Like, I was ready. I was like, let's go, dude. He was this like older gentleman, kind of older, like maybe 15 years older than me, and like just tall. He's 6'8", I think. So he thinks he's big, and he's a guy like that's never been taken out. Because if you've been knocked out, you're different. You're humbled. You know that anyone, like, try to wrestle with a jiu-jitsu like black belt, or like judo, or a wrestler, world champion. Like, you will be humbled quickly. They don't have to be big, and they can toss your salad. They can own you if they wanted to. In MMA, professional, like, they're small, scrawny. They don't look like bodybuilders, but they can toss. So I could tell that with this guy, but I realized that my reaction was Benjito. Hey, I've done this before. You've been bullied, and you've taken on guys at a time. You can do this. Even as a teenager, like, you can do this. I was bullied until later, and I just kept with an aggression issue until 20, or I should say 19 actually. So I was ready to fight with the COO in this office, in this building. He had hid me away in this office, and so I luckily de-escalated myself because I'm an adult now. I have an adult brain. And I went home. I was shaking. I almost wanted to cry. There's so much emotion sometimes. It's it could be just from you want to there's an intense phone call or a meeting or something you have to do. You might get emotional because that's part of the shadow self trying to come out. You're like, why am I shaking? Why am I so, I don't want to do this? Like, my stomach hurts. I'm going to distract in any way possible just not to do it. Maybe I'll go rub one out real quick. Jack off Johnson, you know, whatever. That's all your shadow self. It's trying to say, hey, look at me. Hey, attention. It's raising up a flag. Yo, yo, yo. So just, I went home. I wrote down, I gathered my thoughts and I wrote it down. And then I presented it to him, how I really felt. And yeah, that was my resignation to the company and him. And whatever. Like, that was a whole different story. But I was proud of myself because adult Ben took care of that situation without using his fists. Little Benjito or teenage Benjito didn't have to get in there and I'll take care of it. No, you know, like, and that takes work. That takes shadow self. It takes self-restraint. Yes. But once you can do some homework and revisit, like, hey, Benjito, you're ready to kill that guy for me. You're ready to, you know, do what you got to do. Right. Like, you were ready to defend yourself for life or death. He was just ready to throw fists. He doesn't know where you've been. If you've ever cornered a dog, that's been abused, you're gonna find out, right? And then that's what's happened. Like, so I went back and revisited him and kind of comforted that Ben, saying like, look, I understand why you did what you did and why you were gonna do what you were gonna do. And you know, you can have compassion when you've done the work on yourself. You can done the compassion on yourself and just realize that we're human. So next time someone flips out at you, look at them in the kid version. The little kid version of them is freaking out at you. Little kid version is having a little, you know, complaining and being an asshole to you or at work or whatever. You got to think like, yeah, this guy's literally being a kid. He's having a childhood tantrum. And that's it. So you can have some compassion, de-escalate yourself and walk away. Be like, dude, hope you get some help. You need it. All right. So second, so that's, you know, do journaling. And then the second part is start that shadow work. I mean it. Like, pick those questions that, you know, I put in the video. If you have to re-listen to the video again, because there's, you know, questions there that you should ask yourself, or like little and then start writing them down. And then of course, you know, I'll revisit this. If you have more questions in the comments, you know, leave them for me. But in the end, you know, just remember the negative actions that we've done growing up, they had a positive intention behind them. Okay. And I hope this video I know it's kind of raw, a little intense. I hope it wakes you up. I hope it wakes you up from the patterns that you've been living. Why am I so reactive to my wife when she mentions this? Finances. When she mentions sex. Why is she reactive when I mention sex? Like, you got to start, both of you guys do these questions. There's a reason. Maybe you find out she was super suppressed growing up. I wasn't allowed to watch TV. I wasn't allowed to kiss anyone, let alone have sex. Whatever. You start finding out why people act the way they do. And hopefully you can start having compassion on yourself, on your ugly sides, and realize that's part of you. And it's doing its best. It tried its best. Right? So what is that shadow part of you trying to do for me? Right? There are no bad parts, only wounded parts. And so closing with this, I hope this can help end your cycles, these vicious cycles, these addictions, these chains essentially that we choose to put ourselves in other people. You can start to notice your triggers, start to self-soothe, get deep in thought with that, right? And then maybe do some homework on attachment theories, like you know, how these reactions of avoidant, anxious, really, and I barely touched it, right? We can do a whole video on it. That really is a script given to us, that bad coding. It's a virus pretty much, and we just run with it. We're like, yeah, let's go. It's an outdated Windows 5, but you have this new PC processor. Let's see, what do I have? HX B114V Boost Cooler 5, whatever, all these cool specs. I can't, Intel Core, I don't know, GeForce RTX, I don't know, all this stuff, right? You have this advanced computer running an old program that barely runs. Time to reprogram yourself, okay? Do the shadow work. I hope this makes sense. This is a pretty heavy conversation. We're balls deep into it. We're leaving the nuts hanging out. The whole shaft is in. Just the tip is like way up in the cervix. We're balls deep in this, and it's been an hour. I hope you guys learned something from this, and now you can understand why I'm so crude and sexual, hypersexual a little bit more. But Also, it's the good part to me. That's why, I've been able to do what I've done. So just guys know, in that sense, that's why when I say love yourself, or when people say that, now you know what it means. Have compassion on yourself. You did your best. Your parents are doing your best. They did their best. It wasn't perfect, but they did their best. So your turn to do your best. Work on yourself. It'll be a game changer. I promise you guys. As always, hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, like for more. There will be more. And as always, have a good one.